Hey, everybody, we are back. I guess we're going to call this season 2, and we've got a real banger of a first guest here. We've got Skid Row drummer Rob Hammersmith. Welcome to Eclectic Soundtrax, Rob.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys.
And we were just talking about season 2. Is that what we're doing, Vic, or are we just going to keep adding the numbers?
I don't know. I think
Rob, what would Rob be? Like 59, I think? We're on like 59 or 60?
Yeah, 59. 59, okay. Yeah.
So, Rob, you're either 50, episode 59 or 1. We don't know yet.
Okay. They all kind of blend together after a while, right?
Man, you have the ultimate drummer name, dude.
Yeah. If you guys only knew how many times people ask me if that is my real last name, and it is actually my real last name. So I feel like I didn't have much of a choice but to do anything other than play drums. So
seriously, I had to make up a cool name. I picked a not cool name, I guess.
I like it. So you got you've got Skunk and Manhattan. So you've got a couple of cool components there. Yeah.
Some cool components. But I did not have the blessing of being born with an amazing name like Hammersmith. So
that's the first time somebody's called it amazing, but I'll take it.
It's an amazing name, dude. It's like a Roman god, you know? It's like Thor.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like we said, I mean, were you as a kid, were you interested in drums and music? Is this something you started earlier, or when did you get into music and drums in particular?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I've lost track of exactly what year it was, but I would consider myself to have been fairly young. Elementary school, maybe 5th or 6th grade, something like that. At the oldest, maybe 6th grade at the oldest. And the story, and I love telling this story, but really the moment for me that changed my life, my father took our family to see Roy Orbison. And as a kid, so that was the first concert that I went to. And as a kid, just seeing all the excitement and the lights and the sound and the way people react to the show, and I didn't really know exactly what I was seeing, but I just kind of walked away with a sense of that's what I want to do. And I don't know how, I don't know what, I don't know in what way, shape, or form yet, but that's what I wanted to do. And for me, I think I was lucky that I found something that early. I know a lot of people, you know, they find it later on in life, or whatever their passion is. It doesn't matter if it's sports or music or art or whatever it is. I was just fortunate that I found something that really connected with me at a young age. And I need to go back and do some research. I do have documentation of exactly what year and the date of that show. I need to go back and do some research, but I was young.
Yeah, we're going to need that for our synopsis, so get on it ASAP.
Very good, yeah. I'll make a note of, I'll make a list of my homework here.
Yeah. So was it drums right away, or did you play other instruments as well, or first?
Never. Well, I say never. I took a few piano lessons. It didn't land. It didn't stick. This many years later, and I know exactly what you're going to say after I say this, but I took a few lessons. I regret not sticking with it, and I know you're going to tell me that it's never too late. It's always going to be there, and I should stop making excuses and follow through on it. But it's always been drums for me, and I don't know why. In all honesty, I don't know why I chose the drums. I think so. Having seen a rock band as my first show, there's only a few, right? There's bass guitar, there's guitar, there's drums. I knew I couldn't sing. That wasn't an option for me. So I think drums just kind of, I don't know if they chose me, but I just decided, okay, drums it is. And I haven't looked back.
Do you remember your first kit, or do you have your first kit?
I don't have my first kit. I remember my first kit, and I remember who I sold it to. And I see him occasionally, and he and I occasionally, every couple of years or so, we'll check in with each other and send each other a few messages. And this many years later, and I always give him a hard time telling him I wish I had never sold that kit. So I wish I still had it to this day, if nothing else, just for the memories.
Was this like a high school buddy, or like kind of back then who you sold it to, or you sold
it is, yeah.
With? Okay,
that's right, yeah. So I grew up in a very small town. So as you know, in a music community, if you're in a small town, there's not really a whole lot of players choose from. And in my school, in the small town that I was growing up in, there were a few drummers in high school band, excuse me, but outside of school band, there weren't really a lot of people who were playing, I say recreationally, but outside of the context of the school band, there weren't a whole lot of people playing drums. So my buddy Joe Chesbro and I, we would bond and geek out over Rush and Van Halen, and he was a big Alex Van Halen, Neil Peart fan. So he and I would get together and talk drums and hang out, and he is who I sold the drum kit to. And it's long gone. He hasn't had it for years. And again, I wish if nothing else, for the memories, the childhood memories, I wish I still had that. So, and as you know, you're a player as well, so I'm sure you have pieces of gear or certain things that you've parted ways with over the years, and you wish you still had it.
Well, my original guitar, funny enough, was called a little Heritage. It was a primer gray guitar with little chips missing out of it, and I got this little teeny little PV amp that was I still have the amp and it still works, but that guitar, I gave it to my guitar teacher at the time, or a friend of mine. This goes back. Vic knows about my longtime buddy of mine, Dave, who we were both guys in high school who were huge Skid Row fans and Guns N' Roses and all these bands. And that's where it inspired me to play guitar. And we always had this thing in high school where, like, Skid Row was my band and Motley Crue was his band, and like we're gonna start a band. And our first thing was me playing on that Heritage guitar with my little amp. I mean, he actually didn't even have drums, and he set up cardboard boxes in his garage.
Oh, that's great.
With a little broom for a hi-hat. And we were we couldn't play anything, but we were loving it, man. And his sister, to this day, we can hear her yelling, "Please, for the love of God, stop!" But
that's great. So I'm going to share with you guys a story, since you were kind enough to let me in on a little story of yours. So I will have to look for this picture, and if I can find this picture, it will be my gift to you. But at some point, it had to have been mid '80s, and I must have been, I don't know if I was 14, 15 years old, 15 at the most. And if you can recall, this was back in the day and age of the drum racks, but not the racks, the cages. So the multi-level, it wasn't just the drum rack, but it was the heyday of the drum cage. And I decided in the basement of my parents' house that it's foolish to not have a drum cage, right? I'm 15 years old. I don't really have any gigs. I'm not playing in a band, but it would be silly to not be enclosed in this massive structure. So I found scraps of PVC pipe.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually built my own drum cage in the basement of my parents' house. And I do have some pictures of this, and I could not have been any prouder of this thing. And of course, everything would fall apart every time you'd hit it, but that really wasn't the point. As long as I had enough to feel like I was surrounded by all kinds of things. I will have to look for that picture. That will be my gift to you guys. Because,
that's amazing. Yes. Yeah. If you ever met my buddy Dave, who's played drums, you guys would have a great conversation. He has a construction business now. But, but yeah, that was back in the day. He had an old screwdriver wrapped up that was his kick, for the kick. I mean, it was just one cymbal for everything, and it immediately cracked. I mean, everything was ghetto as hell. Yeah. But my guitar, that original guitar, it was supposed to get like a paint job, and it got all disassembled, so I gave it to my guitar teacher, which I later found out had just disappeared in their apartment. There was like a drug bust. So I was like doing rock star stuff even like when I was like a kid, not even like playing. Yeah. I was like, my guitar was confiscated in a drug bust apparently. So whatever.
Wow. Yeah, it makes for great stories, right?
That's what happened to that instrument. But dude, I had a Yamaha kit, and the same guy I'm talking about, I think I sold it to him way back. And I loved that kit, man. And then I was really lucky because one of the first bands I played in, the drummer moved into the same city where I was living with my parents at the time, and he was like, "I'm going to school. I don't have a place for this." And it just gave me, for like months on end, I had a full-on Pearl kit with cymbals and everything. And so I learned to kind of play. I mean, I'm not a drummer, but I, learned to kind of play a little bit that way. And I love playing drums myself. What was your original kit, and what do you play now?
So this is a full circle moment. My first kit was what they called the Maxwin series, but it was an entry-level series from Pearl Drums. And I've carried that brand with me throughout pretty much my entire career. I have owned other kits. I've played other brands. There's some great stuff out there. I've just always been, from a very early age, I've just been a Pearl drums guy. Growing up, the era that I was learning how to play, all of my drum heroes were playing Pearl drums. I played Pearl drums. It just seemed like kind of like it was meant to be. And I don't mean to sound corny about it, but my first kit, and I'm still playing Pearl today. So
Awesome, man.
yeah.
I remember when I started playing in kind of the area we're talking about and coming of age, late, 80s, early 90s, and it was like, it seemed like everyone was either playing Pearl or Tama,
That's right,
Or
yeah.
Tama. Those are still huge companies, obviously. And there's
That's
a lot
right.
of other great brands that I know a lot of drummers that play now, but I just remember as a kid kind of starting to discover stuff, and those were like, well, was one of those two, you know what I mean?
Those were the two big ones back then. Yeah, for sure.
So what exact kit did you say you play now?
So right now I go back and forth, and the way Skid Row works, if you're familiar with the term fly dates, but we do a lot of fly dates where we're using a lot of backlined gear. So while that used to stress me out, and I used to lose sleep over what the gear was going to be like, and you never know what you're walking into until you get there, and you know all the stress and the anxiety that goes along with those situations. What I have come to realize is it's a great opportunity for me to try a bunch of stuff that I would have never tried on my own. So Pearl, the reference series kit is always going to be my first choice. Obviously within reason. You have to be flexible when you're traveling, and certainly the way a lot of bands operate these days. So their Master Series or Reference Series, those are always going to be my first choice. And then they have a ton of great snare drum options and things like that. So I'm really kind of fortunate. Like I said, it used to stress me out, and I've just come to realize that stressing out doesn't help me, and it doesn't change the situation. So I've learned to become a little bit of a drum nerd and actually get excited about not knowing what I'm walking into. But I never thought I'd hear myself say that, but I actually kind of enjoy it.
Fly by the seat of your pants just a little bit every time.
That's right. It adds an extra layer of excitement, and it doesn't it doesn't always pay off, but that's half the fun, right?
Are you? What about cymbals?
Cymbals, Sabian. I've been with Sabian for a long time, and it's very similar to Pearl. I've owned, and I still do. I own other cymbals. There's a ton of great stuff out there. Other brands, other manufacturers make great stuff. You know what? They've just been, I don't know. They sound right to me. It sounds like what I hear in my head. They've got a few different cymbal lines, a few different series that I just really it connects with me. Like I said, it sounds like when I envision in my head what I want my setup to sound like, then they've got what I'm after.
Awesome, man. Yeah.
So I'm going to bear with me, guys. I want to plug this in because now I'm getting the low battery light on my laptop, and I don't want to lose you guys. So. Okay.
It worked.
Yay!
You didn't need tech support.
I know, right? Yeah, she's standing right over here. She's about 3 feet to my right. So, yeah.
So you joined Skid Row in 2010, is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, April 2010 was my first gig with those guys.
Okay, and of course we're going to talk about Skid Row, but what did you do before Skid Row, music-wise? Other bands? What kind of stuff do you have going on?
Yeah, I was playing with. You guys may or may not be familiar with an artist by the name of Wednesday 13.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So he's most, I guess, well known for being the frontman of the band Murderdolls with Joey Jordison and. So when he was doing some solo tours, this is going back a couple of years before I started playing with Skid Row, he was doing a few projects, and they weren't always under the name Wednesday 13. Some of them were, some of them weren't. And he was going through a period where he was kind of experimenting and trying to figure out exactly what direction he wanted to go in next. So I spent some time touring and playing with him. I've lost track, maybe a couple of years, maybe not even that long. Did a few tours with him, and that was great. I really enjoyed that. I wasn't really sure. Murderdolls, coincidentally, in 2010, they were making plans to do a second record, and I kind of knew that there was there was an expiration date on my gig, and I just kind of, like everybody else in this business, you're just trying to figure it out as you go. So I didn't really know what I was going to do after the Wednesday gig was done. So that the timing on that worked out really well. And then prior to that, I've been living in Atlanta, Georgia for, over 20 years now, maybe close to 25 years. And that's a funny story in and of itself. I came here with the intention of staying for 3 weeks, and that was 20-some years ago. So here I am. And, like everybody else, just I came down here largely due to the music scene. The music scene that was happening for rock music in the late 90s and the early 2000s in Atlanta was great. And I had some friends who had been down here for a handful of years already, and it kind of just seemed like a place that I wanted to check out, and it kind of stuck. I've been here for 20-some years. But like everybody else, just playing in as many bands as I can, getting out there and trying to, doing touring and regional touring and things like that, but nothing, high level, nothing that I could not, I always had to keep working, and I always had to keep just pushing forward, and it was great. It was a great scene to be a part of, but it was a scene that you had to hustle, and you had to, really try to keep your head above water. And you guys know the deal, and it's certainly in a city like Austin, it's very similar. There is a lot of opportunity, but with that comes a lot of competition. There's a lot of players, as you know, in a city like that.
So much, yeah. So
yeah.
Like you said, it's great, but man, everyone's playing all the time. There's always something going on.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
I hope no big national acts are playing at these 5 venues, and
that's right.
Having their album release, it's like impossible to find a night where nothing is going on.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it can be a grind, but I and I'm sure you guys feel the same way about it. But for me, that was certainly in my younger years, that was the excitement, and that was we felt like we were all out there together doing it, supporting the scene, but we also felt like we were paying our dues, and we were separating who's serious about this and who isn't. And I don't I don't have any judgments, or there's a million different ways to approach music. If you want to play casually as a hobby, if you just want to play on the weekends, if you want to play locally, if you want to travel, there's no wrong way to play music. But for my goals, for the things that I was looking forward to what my next move might be, it was a pretty competitive town to be playing music in. But for the better, obviously it makes you a better player, and how that whole thing works. But
well, you said you were from a small town, and you said moved out. So were you kind of upper East Coast then, or where are you from originally?
So I'm originally from a small town about 45 minutes south of Buffalo, New York.
Oh,
so maybe,
wow.
Yeah, maybe 45 minutes to an hour south of Buffalo. So rural western New York State.
New York is such a beautiful state. I haven't seen the whole state, but I've been through many parts of it.
Yeah.
And for the first time a couple of years ago, I got up to Buffalo touring with a band, and it was awesome. I loved it, man.
Yeah.
Really cool.
It's like probably everybody feels this way about the place they grew up in, but I didn't really appreciate it when I was growing up there. You always you wonder what else is out there, and everybody I feel like the majority of the people, when you're that age, you don't understand you just look at it through the eyes of a young person, and I didn't really appreciate that area when I was growing up the way I do now. When I go home to visit my family, my whole family is still in and around the Buffalo area. Mm-hmm. It's a really nice area, and especially this time of year in the fall. I'll tell you, I was talking to my wife the other day, and nothing beats the northeastern part of the United States in the fall. There's no other part of the country that can compete with the Northeast. Yeah.
Really is, man. That's the thing about Texas. I mean, I know some people that have come down here and they love it because they lived in Minnesota or something.
Right.
But dude, the heat here, man.
I know it's a different kind of heat you got going on down there.
Oh, it's brutal. So and Atlanta is probably not much better. I mean, we're all kind of a bit in the armpit of the.
We are, yeah, I mean? Yeah. That's putting it politely, right?
Yeah. You're a little bit up the, you're not in Florida, but
right.
But it gets pretty hot and humid there, I imagine.
Yeah, it does.
Well, speaking of heat too, man, I was supposed to see you guys for the Slave to the Grind 30th, anniversary. And I mean, still to this day, such a great, iconic album and one of my favorites. And my fiance is a massive Skid Row fan. There's this whole backstory about how we kind of met and everything, which is just really funny. But she's out in San Francisco, right? And so you guys played in, I think, Corning or something.
We did, yeah. That was our first show post-pandemic. You might know the date.
The date it was supposed to be got canceled because of the freaking heat.
That's right, yeah.
So I wasn't able to go.
Okay.
Because I had a flight booked and everything, but it got canceled. So she went, but I wasn't able to, yeah.
So she saw the rescheduled gig.
Yes.
Okay. Which was, again, that was our first show post all of the upside down world that we live in, everything kind of going sideways for the last 18 months.
Did y'all you did a few different shows, or was it it wasn't just a one-off, right?
So for the anniversary shows, we've done 3, I believe, possibly 4. Yeah, so we've done a handful.
And those are the kind of gig, like you're saying, you're just flying to these locations and.
Right now, we're just doing some weekend fly dates. Everything's been so crazy, and I know for everybody, in all honesty, every line of work, every industry has just been so completely bizarre and upside down these last.
So hard to schedule and plan anything, man.
It really is.
Around the corner, we all thought, okay, we're starting. Everyone starts booking, and it's like, here we go, and then it's like, nope, Delta variant.
Yeah,
50
just kidding.
Shutdowns. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so we're getting back out there. Obviously, we're all eager to just go back to things as they were, but we're getting there slowly. So I think if my numbers are right, we'll be about 12 to 15 shows by the end of this year, which it's not a ton of shows, but it's all progress, and it's better than the 0 that we've been able to play for the last year or so. So we'll take it.
Yeah. Did you play it all in 2020 or no?
We played 4 shows before everything shut down. So if you guys remember in March of last year when everything really went sideways, we were able to get 4 shows for the year done, and then it was all just.
Well, now was that a tour that where the tour got canceled, or was it just sort of a run or a few dates?
So those particular shows, we were doing some weekend fly dates, but if you guys remember last year, the summer, we were supposed to have done the summer package tour, which was it was Rat, Slaughter, Skid Row, and Tom Kiefer. And we had, I believe it was about a 40-show summer run. We were going to do some amphitheaters and things like that. So that would have carried us through the entire summer. And before and then post-summer, we would have been doing our own shows. So we probably would have finished the year with about 100 shows. And we were able to get 4 of them done before everything went completely upside down. So
I saw you guys at NAMM in January.
That's right, yeah.
And I don't know where. I mean, maybe you were hanging with Pearl and Sabaton and some of that stuff, but you guys did a signing. I don't know if it was Coffin or something where y'all did a signing.
It was Reunion Blues. Reunion Blues gig bags. That's a mouthful. Reunion Blues gig bags, but they are under the Ace Products umbrella, so that now includes coffin cases, pig hog cables.
Yeah, that's what it was. Pig hog. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they've got a great operation over there, lovely people and a great company. And I believe coffin cases may be new for them, or they might have been new at the time.
I think see a lot of that, like merging or someone. It's like an umbrella company, and they're all kind of under together or something like that. Maybe
or something.
Yeah, something to that effect.
I don't know.
Something fancy.
Yeah. I don't know the business lingo.
I'm the worst at like recognizing anybody, like celebrities, musicians. I mean, whether I'm a fan or not, I'm just terrible at like. And I remember we were standing up because I played the Gibson.
Vic's laughing over there. He agrees with you. You.
I mean, you'll know I'm on my best behavior so far, but anywho, yeah, so
well, my name is Rob. In case you forgot. Yeah.
Who's on the show again? I haven't started drinking yet. It's all good.
Okay.
Now, but I was up at Gibson, and my fiance, plays bass and, big, huge Rachel Bolan. She's like, oh my God, there's Rachel Bolan. I'm like, huh, where? He's 10 feet from us. And I'm like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah.
I talked to them and I talked to, Snake and Scotty, super cool. And actually opened for you guys here in 2016 when you played Come and Take It Live in Austin. And
Okay.
to chat a bit with Snake that night. But
Okay.
I never got to talk to you. So this is awesome having you on here. And
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And you know
Absolutely.
NAMM is always. I tell people, if you want to really have a good quality conversation with somebody, NAMM is not the place to do
No.
it. It's so overwhelming, and you guys know
Dude, it's also got to be the worst for you guys because like I know myself 10 whatever plus years ago. Like, here's my business card. Dude, don't give me a CD. No, please. Like, no one has time. Nobody wants physical.
both logistically and then when things were normal. Obviously, we're busy. We're out touring and we're playing shows, and we love doing that. And you throw in a few of the logistical things that our band deals with. We don't all live in the same states and cities, and up until recently, we didn't all live in the same country. So logistically, I know that there are a ton of different ways to work remotely and file sharing and all these ways of recording remotely and things like that. We just decided that we prefer to work together. We prefer to be. I guess it's because of the age range of all of us. I guess because I hate to say that we're old school guys, but we kind of are. And I appreciate that about this band. We just prefer to work together when we can. So that said, it's taken us a little bit longer than we would have liked for it to have taken, but yes, we're getting close, and I don't have an official date for you as of today. But yeah, we've been working on it for quite a while, and it's coming along slowly but surely. So I wish I had an exact date for you.
Yeah, there's something to be said for the organic quality of being in a room together. And I mean, are you recording in Atlanta? Where's the place that you guys are actually recording?
Right now we're recording.
Nashville.
We're recording in Nashville, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, we're working with Nick Raskulinix is producing the record, and he's been working with us for the last handful of months. So whenever we do any type of rehearsing or recording, we'll typically work in Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I think Rachel Bolan's there, isn't he?
He is, yeah. So, again, I'm not great with dates. I think he's been up there 5 or 6 years now. And he and I originally met through the Atlanta music scene, but now he's been up in Nashville for a handful of years. It seems like either Austin, Vegas, or Nashville seems to be where everybody's moving to these
dude.
days.
I've heard a lot of good things about. I know a lot of people have gone to Nashville from LA, and same with Vegas. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Vegas as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like those are the 3 hot spots right now.
Mm-hmm. Who was living out of the country? Was that TZ or what?
ZP, yeah. So
ZP,
he is.
Oh my God, I said it wrong. ZP.
It's hard to keep track of.
I can't remember. See, there it happened, and I'm not apologizing. I don't care. I smoke
There
less
you go.
weed. Whatever.
There you go. Yeah. He was. So he's been in the UK for the last handful of years, and obviously been able to come over here and work on a work visa and all the things that go along with that. But with the pandemic and the way things have been much stricter with travel, it's kind of thrown a wrench in the works for us this year, and trying to get together and be as productive as we wanted to be just wasn't really an option for us. So
travel in general, but especially international, man. I mean, geez.
Yeah, it's been. I don't have to tell you guys, it's been weird, and nobody really knows. Nobody really has a handbook for how to figure this out. So we've been trying to figure it out as we go. He is now here in the States, and we've been able to get out and play some shows and do some work. So
well, the good news is that our country's super united, through all this. So
yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah. That's
God, what a shit show. I feel bad, like for you and anyone who has kids, man. It's just like, I swear we weren't all this, it hasn't all been this horrible. It's just like, what a disaster, man.
It's weird, right? It's like. And I'm sure it's bizarre, and even my thoughts and feelings and opinions about things, that's for a different conversation. But
sure.
But just watching, like you said, what's been going on this last year and a half, it's just weird. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I'm watching some kind of weird movie somewhere.
It does feel surreal, like we're in this weird dystopian John Carpenter film or something.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
what the hell's going on?
Yeah, and it seems like everywhere you go, everybody's ready to fight each other.
Yeah,
and,
dude. I
and-
mean, it's like
yeah,
modern day Civil War, but instead of muskets, we're using our keyboards. You know, it's
kind of. Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. Which I guess is slightly safer, but but I don't know.
I don't know how muskets aren't that accurate anyway. So, but
Yeah.
no,
that's
I
true.
mean, it's not like we're dealing with Antietam or anything. But yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy time, man. And honestly,
for
I think
sure.
a lot of us are just kind of like over it in terms of like, look, let's just try to move on, man. Let's just try to figure out.
That's exactly.
Stop hating each other and being so just awful about everything, and let's just
That's
try to
it,
work
yeah.
together, man. You know, and
Yeah.
out and get through it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%. And as I said, I know that we all have our thoughts and opinions, and that's great. That's what living in a free country is all about. So I support
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
I just, for the greater good, I feel like we can all calm down a bit. But
Except the
we'll see.
except the toilet paper hoarders, man. Kick those guys out.
Well, yeah. There is that, right?
Rob, I got to warn you, man. You don't want to get Vic started. He tends to rant.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
All right. Do you have anything you need to get off your chest while I'm here?
That's a dirty lie. I'm the ranter. Vic is.
Are you the ranter?
Hey, are you a football guy? You ever watch football?
You know what? I was as a kid, but no, as an adult, I don't. I'm not a big sports guy.
So
I'm not a big.
I don't get a lot of. I don't watch like I used to. I mean, I enjoy
Okay.
football and I've got my team and all that. But like, I just. So do you remember back in the like John Madden, Pat Summerall?
Oh yeah,
combo?
for sure. Yeah.
I've come to where I equate our dynamic on this podcast. Like I'm John Madden. I'll just fly off the hand. So if I start talking about turkey legs and
Okay.
sweat rings on guys' butts, Vic's like, so anyway, Rob, tell us about Skid Row. Like, he's the guy that reels it back.
He reels it back in. Okay. Well, every good duo has the guy that knows how to reel him back in.
You gotta have your Pat Summerall, man.
That's right. That's right. So,
So the new album is that.
Yes.
Now there was a trilogy, but I don't know if it was ever a completed trilogy, right? Like there was an EP and an album, and so is this an extension still of that, or is this something completely new?
yeah, these are all great questions, and
United
So-
World Rebellion, right? Because
Correct.
Okay.
yeah. So we did two EPs. There was part 1, part 2. And originally what the plan was, part 3 was going to be a full length. So that is the plan as of now. So part 3 will be a full length recording and serve as part 3 of the trilogy.
Okay.
But-
Cool.
Yeah, it's, as I said, we're like everybody else in this business. I feel like we're just trying to build the plane as we fly it, and we're also easily distracted guys, so we don't have the best attention span in the world. So we sometimes forget that, oh yeah, we need a third installment to the trilogy. So as much fun as it is writing these songs and recording them, we do need to make sure that we wrap up this thing that we've started. So yeah, so yeah, we haven't gotten to the point where we have titles and things like that, but we're looking at it as the third installment. Yeah, and how it'll all tie in,
Yeah, and you certainly don't have to explain these things to me. I'm notorious for the Snails Pace album of like coming next year. Just kidding. Summer,
right.
fall.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm finally just now getting a new thing out, and it's just like, for the love of God. I mean, but I know what you mean, man. Like 2020 hit, and I was doing all this remote stuff, and it just kind of put everything on hold, and I was just like, we're not booking. There's no momentum with anything, and like.
That's
I
it.
just
Yeah.
didn't feel it. I kind of lost the desire to even mess with it. I feel like a lot of people did too. It's just like, and we didn't expect to be a year and a half into this.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's I don't know how you guys were when this whole thing first happened, but if you guys remember back in like say March or April of last year, we were all I say led to believe, and I'm not so cynical as to think that people had all the answers back then, but based on what we knew at the time, we were under the impression that we'll shut things down for a couple weeks, and then we'll slowly start getting back to normal. And then a couple weeks turned into a couple of months, and then if you remember last year, we all thought we were going to be back out playing gigs by June or July, early summer. And then it kind of became, we'll wait till fall and we'll see what happens. And yeah, I don't really think that for us, we were wanting to be productive. We wanted to, but we just didn't know what we were doing, and we just felt like we were on shaky ground, and we didn't. And I don't say that it's as a doom and gloom type of thing. We were just trying to figure out what the hell was happening, and by the time we did that, a year had gone by. So it was kind of strange to look back on.
Also, with the higher level band, you're not sort of just playing like, oh, we'll take a gig here and take a gig there. You plan an album release. You plan.
Right.
I mean, there's this huge thing that's happening that's all got to kind of work together, and then the tour.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. It's like you can't put something like that together.
Yeah.
You don't know what the hell next week or next month holds.
Well, that's exactly it. And for us specifically, so there were a lot of bands that were out doing the drive-in shows, and they were doing some of the live stream shows, which were great. All of those things were great. And it's amazing to see how artists in a time like that, they get creative. And a lot of people just figure out, okay, we can't do what we want to do, so what can we do? And I love seeing that. I love seeing people get creative and come up with these new things. The drive-in shows were a great concept for the time, but for us, with a member who doesn't live in the U.S. and we had border crossings, we had all these things that we had to deal with. Unfortunately, it didn't make sense for us to do that because we couldn't all physically get in the same place to begin with, and then if we did, it would have to be for more than just one show or say two shows. So for us, it just didn't make sense to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah. I want to say you guys had some really cool festival in Norway or Finland or something like that was supposed to happen last year, and I can't remember, but there was some huge thing. And it makes you wonder. You see these things, and then like COVID numbers start to spike, and you're like, oh man, is this going to get cut? There's all these huge festivals started popping up at the beginning of this year or the last.
That's right.
Summer,
yeah.
Right? It's like, will it happen?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Fingers crossed, right?
But just from our encounter here on the podcast, I kind of envision you when this went down, that you were like, okay, let's do some YouTube videos, and then you just never got it hooked up, right? You were just like,
that's exactly what happened.
Calling your daughter like, what do we do?
How does this work? Yeah. So
you're drumming your heart out, and there's just like the camera's not even on.
That's exactly yeah. If there's so I'm the what's the 2021 version of leaving the lens cap on? That's me. Yeah, whatever the new version of that is, that's me.
Oh, and everyone having to learn to use Zoom, right? Because everyone, for years, I was like, I teach music and stuff, and I was like, I should do Skype, I should move, and I never really bothered. And
Sure.
This happened, and your hand got forced, and schools were, everyone was forced to go online, so you kind of figured it out. Obviously, Vic and I started this podcast, and everyone's zooming in this, but I remember there was like those funny SNL skits and just all these spoofs and parodies of the whole people with their hello, can you hear me? And
that's it. Yeah,
the grandparents trying to figure out how to talk to their kids.
So we've all seen the what's the insurance company? They're doing the commercials of people turning into their parents.
Oh yeah.
Is it the Geico commercials? It might be Geico or it might be.
They tend to have really good ones.
Yeah. So it's funny. The commercials are funny, but I've also realized that they're talking to me. They're actually making fun of me, and you know what? I'm okay with it. Yeah. There are worse things to be made fun of for. So
can't stop technology. I mean, it just takes us, our generation, a lot longer to figure out what the hell's going on. But
I give you guys a lot of credit for doing the podcast thing. I figured out last year. So I have a drum studio in my house, and I was always, I'm going to use the term old school again, but I always wanted to keep technology out of that room. When I go in that room, it's to sit down and play drums, and I put headphones on, and I might play some AC/DC or do whatever it is I want to do. And sometimes I go in there in the middle of the night and just play a couple of AC/DC songs just to get my fix and feel like I'm playing drums. But I never wanted to go in there. I didn't want computer monitors everywhere, and I didn't want technology, and I didn't want all these distractions and these things. I wanted it to be like when I was a kid, a room with a set of drums. And then fast forward to last year, and people are talking about recording remotely and doing all these things. And I realized right away, I don't know how you guys are with this, but I realized instantly how far behind the times I am. I don't own recording gear. I don't own the software to do it. even if I were to have gone out last year, you couldn't find half of what you needed because everybody had the same idea last year. They'll set up a home studio, they'll do recordings, they'll do whatever it is that they were looking to do. And then I've got at least a year learning curve just trying to figure out how to get this stuff set up and get it connected. So I really became aware last year of how far behind the times on a lot of the stuff I am. Now, it hasn't changed anything. I haven't made an effort to change that, but I became painfully aware of it.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And I mean, the way you work, it works for for this band and the way you guys do things, which is, old school. But man, there's something to be said for any time I'm assuming you're recording on, maybe a console, or how are you guys recording? Do you have
Well, it is console, but it's not an analog. We're not going straight analog, so we are using Pro Tools.
Everything's Pro Tools now, but
yeah, exactly.
But you still have outboard gear and stuff in a studio.
That's correct.
You get the nice preamps and the stuff like that, and the room and all those things do make a difference, man.
Oh, absolutely. And these guys are using cabinets. They're using speakers, so there is actually air moving in the room. Yeah, there's really
I've done
as
both. I've done both, and man, yeah. If you can afford it, if you can do it, it's the shit,
Yeah, I kind of feel like with drums, I love the organic, the nature of an organic instrument, and with that is all the problems that comes along with it, and I'm okay with that. I know that the stuff is they all have a personality of their own. Some days they're going to cooperate, and then you're going to go into the next room, and it's not going to sound quite right, and you're going to spend half the night trying to figure out, or half the afternoon leading up to the gig, trying to mess with it, and you'll be chasing your tail trying to find what you had 2 nights ago,
right.
And you realize that this thing it's in a completely different environment, the climate, the temperature, whatever the factor might be. All those things that you're chasing, you may never find that one night again. Your ears might be different. You might be tired. You might be hungover. There's just a number of different variables. But to me, that's kind of part of the charm of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a magic that happens when those components do come together, and it's just like the magical organic sound in the room and all those little subtleties that a scientific engineer knows that we're just, for me, it's just like kind of go by ear, and I have a little bit of a sense of some things, and I work Pro Tools or whatever, but I'm not an engineer or any of that. And it's but a lot of that stuff too, I think it really is, it's the gut feeling and it's vibe. It's like, man, we're feeling it. The vibe is right, that we're getting all those things come together, and that's not something you can simulate. There's all kinds of amazing plugins, and things have gotten so good, but still you cannot simulate the sound of a real kit pushing air in a real room into a microphone, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. And with guitars as well, you can get 5 of the exact same guitars and line them up, and every piece of wood has a different personality.
Absolutely.
There's so many different variables that go into something like that. Wood ages differently, and it's fun to start I don't know, geeking out on that kind of stuff. So,
well, speaking of that, and get a little more geeky on it, like what kind of wood do you prefer in terms of snares and in your kit? What kind of wood or metal or anything?
So for snares, and this is a pretty standard, I say standard, but it's standard for a reason. I'm a chrome over brass snare guy. That's a fairly popular choice. So pretty much all of the drum companies out there have their version of a chrome over brass. So it's a brass shell snare drum. It's rolled, so it's an alloy rolled into shell, and then it's covered in chrome. Honestly, there's really nothing fancy about it, but it sounds, for what we do, for rock music, it sounds great. It cuts, it's got a warmth to it. It's one of those designs, the anatomy of that drum it's not terribly complicated. I prefer, for what we do, a 6.5 inch depth. So for you drummers out there, that the depth of the snare has a huge effect on the sound. So the shallower the snare, the higher and the tighter the pitch and the overall texture of the drum is going to be. So I prefer something that's got a little bit deeper body to it.
Right, you get just more body in that, right? Like a piccolo is just a real kind of tight little crack.
That's exactly it, yeah, and it speaks really quickly. So then you start getting into the science behind the relationship between the what they call the batter head and the resonant head. And the shorter that distance is, then the quicker they talk to each other, for lack of a better term. So when you've got a little bit more of a spread, it sounds a little bit more resonant. It sounds a little bit more of a rounder sound than a really quick.
You have heads top and bottom on all your.
Yes,
Okay.
I do. Yes, yeah.
What are some
Yeah.
examples of those chrome brass snares?
So Pearl, the ones that I use are just a Pearl Sensitone. Ludwig has some iconic versions of that drum. Ludwig has a lot of iconic snare drums. They're a company that's known for obviously all the old Bonham. He played one that, in particular the LM402. That is not a chrome over brass, but that's their iconic snare drum in my opinion. The Black Beauties, things like that. They have their version.
Who does Black Beauty? Is that Ludwig?
That is Ludwig. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that is a chrome over brass. I'm familiar with that snare, and I feel like it has that sort of timbre to it, right?
Okay. And if I remember correctly, and you might know, this is something I should look up before I start talking about it, but I believe the Black Beauty is seamless. So the way that they construct the shell, so a chrome over brass, typically there's going to be a seam in the shell somewhere, and I believe Ludwig's design is seamless, but I could be wrong on that.
Okay. I think Vic's looking it up.
Okay.
Am I?
You look like you're Wikipediaing to me.
No,
He's doing some fact checking over there.
I was wondering what kind of batteries it uses.
I got you.
No, me and Skunk talked to somebody about batteries one time.
Okay.
But anyway.
What?
The whole battery thing,
remember.
right? Energizer versus Duracell changes the tone.
Who did we talk to about that? Are you Okay, well, I guess we got to talk about it. Rob, are you an Energizer or a Duracell? Oh, God, we were talking about Eric Johnson, of course. Dave
Okay, all right. So I'm not surprised to hear that some people, I just don't hear things quite as deeply as other people, but I get to a point where, if I can either play the song or I can't, and if you're starting to get down into the level of the batteries, I got to give you credit. I just maybe I don't hear things quite with. I don't know.
Apparently Eric Johnson does.
Okay, well, you know what? Good for him.
Well,
Good for him.
There was another thing where a guy said that he liked the top of this was a guy that played with him. He was saying, didn't he say that he liked the top of his amps to be kind of rustier? There was some kind of amp specification.
He sold one of his amps, but he told his tech to put the rusty shoulders on the amp that he sold because it sounds better. Right.
Okay.
Instead of the brand new shoulder. And I was like, wow, okay, cool.
Okay, interesting. Like I said, if you can hear it, then go for it. I guess maybe I should pay closer attention. I don't know.
This made me think of another podcast now when we interviewed a guy who had done his own podcast where they had this. I was on a long time ago. And it was hilarious. They had a segment, but I can't remember. It was like actor or something or male porn star, and just now talking about or gay porn star. So, but it's like rusty shoulders, like. Is that an ant modification or a gay porn star? Rob, what do you think? Rusty shoulders. Yeah, he was huge in the 70s. What a mustache. What a mustache. And
that's exactly right.
So what about material for the rest of the kit, like birch or oak or?
So my preference, if I'm given my choice, I love the Pearl Reference series because the series. That particular series changes as you move through the size range. So there are certain types of wood react differently, and they have a different sonic quality to them. So the higher frequency drums, the smaller size drums, which have a higher pitch to them, they are made up of birch, and then it moves through maple, through the mid-range, and then when you get into the larger floor toms and kick drums, you're looking at a combination of maple mahogany, and then their kick drums are all mahogany. And the reason, so Pearl really did a great job with kind of going through the science behind. If you want to enhance higher frequencies, birch is a great wood for that. It's a little bit more of a focused sound. Then if you want a really deep, throaty, if you want to just dig out that low end, mahogany, because of the moisture content and the density and all these things that are over my head in terms of the science of the wood, so mahogany is definitely better for low end types of quality. You know what though? Honestly, maple is always been, it's kind of been an industry standard for a long time. So Pearl does a Masters series, which is an all maple. They have an all maple line in the Masters series. I love those. Those seem to me to be great throughout all the different size ranges. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about there comes a point where I don't hear it anymore. You have to be a really fine-tuned ear to hear some of those really minor differences. And you know what? I show up to a gig and I don't know how you guys are, but I think I almost kind of turn it off at some point. I spend my whole day fascinated by it and worrying about it and thinking about it, and then it gets to be 10 minutes before showtime and I just want to go out there and hit the drums and have fun and play the songs.
Yeah, it's how it's supposed to be. Yeah, you don't want to be thinking when you're playing. That's
exactly how I am with it. So I really don't spend a ton of time sweating that, but between the Masters, the all maple line and the Masters, and the reference series is really fun when you start reading about how they put that whole series together and the anatomy of each different size range. Pearl did a great job with that, so that would be my first choice.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what's your setup in terms of your toms, the dimensions of everything?
So I'm pretty basic. It's close to what they call a Bonham setup. The sizes aren't exactly the same, but the configuration is a pretty standard rock. 14-inch, ideally 6.5-inch deep snare drum, 13-inch rack tom, 16 and 18-inch floor tom, and then a 24-inch kick is my first choice. But oftentimes I'm playing a 22-inch kick, and those are great as well.
Yeah,
so,
22.
Yeah.
24s, those big bastards, right? Do they get bigger than 24s?
They do, yeah. So Bonham was a 26 guy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and you can find those out there, but for me, 24 is fine.
That's
I don't
a pretty
really
sizable kick drum, yeah.
It is, yeah. And I'm not a big guy either, so it makes me look small if I get too big of a kick drum. It makes me look like
jazz kit.
That's right, yeah. It makes me look tiny. I don't want to do that.
Well, one thing I started to say, I was thinking when you were just talking about the different wood and the science, and I also think it's important, a good player, a great player, especially, like, you're going to get, unless the instrument is an absolute piece of crap, like you can get on something and make it sound great.
I believe that.
Player,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I
I believe
that's true for guitar, and I'm sure it's the same with drums. So
Yeah, there's definitely there's a lot of truth to that, and if you start poking around on YouTube, and this is referring to drums specifically, but there's footage of Mike Portnoy out there, and I think there's some Dave Grohl footage
playing on like Hello Kitty kits and stuff.
That's exactly
right?
it. And you know what? He sits down, he plays, and it sounds like Dave Grohl. It sounds great. So yeah, there's a lot of truth to the instrument's only going to take you so far, and for me, I try to worry about that stuff. I try to take a lot of pride and put in the effort and pay attention to the details. But there does come a point, and like I said, for me, it's usually about 10 or 15 minutes before the gig, that my job is to go out there and play the songs, no excuses. And we're also talking about a lot of things that, in all honesty, unless you're a player, unless you're a sound technician or an engineer of some kind, 99% of the people in the room don't hear those things anyway. So for you,
yeah, and they've been drinking. So
well, yeah, there is that. There is that. Yeah. So, and you just have to. And I know that you guys have been through all this, but you're talking about people who've paid to come and see your band, and they've come to hear these songs. And when I go and see a band, and there's somebody up there on stage, and yeah, I know what it's like to have problems. I know what it's like to be in a situation that's less than ideal. But my job isn't to not. It's to not pass that on to the person who paid to see the show, and it's not my job to burden them with a snare drum that I don't think sounds great. That's not fair, in my opinion. It's not fair for me to take focus away from the gig to do that. So, and some nights that's easier said than done, as you know, but that's always in the back of my mind.
Yeah, you got to play through it, man. Put on a show, like you said.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
There to see you and have a good time, and
that's it.
And 90, like you said too, 90+% of the people aren't going to have any idea if your tone is a little off, or
that's right.
You got a tech or someone will run on stage if a catastrophe happens, like a hi-hat falls over. But I mean,
That's right. Yeah.
I I was going to say one thing, maybe not as much with the drums, but I certainly can be very picky about a snare when I'm, getting a snare, listening to, I'm saying, too much ping, and everyone has different tastes,
Yeah.
and it's contingent on the genre and what you're going for, all these things.
Sure.
But I have noticed one thing about studio cymbals definitely make a huge difference having quality cymbal, because I'll get a lot of kind of like frequency grossness out of like cheaper
That's it,
cymbals.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that the
Yeah, so
technical term?
the different alloys. It is now.
Is that the
It
technical
is
term?
now.
Frequency grossness.
Cymbal grossness.
Cymbal
yeah.
grossness.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
Frequency grossness. That sounds like that should be like a band. And then I just go into the studio and be like, play anything, because that's our brand. We just make noise.
Right.
It's on brand.
That's right.
There's your next album.
Yeah.
Easy.
Okay.
I'm here to ruin the career of Skid Row. That's what I'm doing today.
All right. Well,
Yeah, they were such a great band for all those years, and they put out that Frequency Grossness album, and I just don't know what the hell they were thinking.
Had that
I
Rusty
couldn't get
Shoulder
past the
song on
symbol. That's right.
It's like, how can we take Lars's cymbal from Saint Anger and make it sound or actually it was a snare drum. Jesus Christ.
It was, yeah.
Notorious trash can snare.
Yeah.
I tried to listen to that album. I really tried, and I just couldn't. I love Metallica. Who doesn't? I mean, I'm a
Sure,
huge
of course.
Metallica fan, but
Yeah.
and I get that they were going for something different. But my God, man,
Yeah.
oof.
It was harsh. I don't
As a
think it
drummer,
was
you got to sit there and be going like, wow, like you really had to work to make that thing sound that bad. Like,
it's it would not have been my first choice, but who am I to criticize those guys, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's Metallica, so
Of course.
I don't think I'm going to be opening for Metallica anytime soon, so I can pretty much say whatever. But
There you go. Yeah.
you're a little higher tier. You got to play it cool, man.
Yeah, it's I'm sure he's not too worried about what I think of his drum sound. So
He's too busy buying like $billion pieces of art.
exactly, yeah. Good for him. So, like I said,
James. Oh, that's the old Lars when he had more hair.
yeah.
Like,
But you know what? So I mean, the flip side of that is they were never a band to play it safe, and
oh man, massive props, dude. Like,
they always
were
want.
Yeah, and Justice. What a weird album that was in its own
Yeah.
way, but amazing.
Yeah, they were always a band, and that's the beauty of, and that's why they are where they are. Is when everybody else goes right, they go left, and it's we're talking about them, so it works.
Totally.
So, yeah.
And I mean, and then just following your passions, and whether it's Metallica or I always like this about GNR and Skid Row as well. Like, I think it's so cool having. I mean, there's these elements of like metal and and old school classic rock and roll, punk rock.
Right.
All these things that kind of combine and give the band a sound, and then you get different things on different albums. And I love like sometimes you get just a weird, random country song or something, or something super punk rock.
Yeah.
But I like that because it kind of keeps it fun and fresh. And you see, like most musicians have a very wide palette of influences, and it's really easy to kind of get stuck in a box.
Yeah.
So I always appreciate the bands that do take chances, try different things. And a lot of my favorite records of a lot of bands, the first time I hear the album, I'm like, I don't know, because
That's exactly
what we know already. And then you listen to it a few more times, you're like, oh man, this is really good.
Yeah.
It's new territory.
For me, something I figured out is if I like something right out of the gate, it often has a shorter shelf life with me. Mm-hmm. If I have to warm up to it, and maybe it takes me a few listens, and then over time I grow to really appreciate it. Those are the albums that stick with me for years, and those are the albums that I think I just have a deeper appreciation for them. And I have found throughout the years, like I said, if something grabs me quickly, that's great, and there's a lot to be said for a really catchy hook, a catchy melody, and something that grabs you right away. But I think the things that I have to really dig into and find it, or maybe you listen to it a handful of times, and then all of a sudden one day it catches you at the right moment. Those are usually the things that I bond with a little bit deeper, and I don't know if you guys are the same way.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite albums from when you were a kid, that got you inspired initially when you started playing drums and music, and then also some of your favorite albums these days?
Okay. So when I was a kid growing up, High and Dry is probably that's the first record that I can recall like when you're talking about an album as a body of work, not just a single on the radio or
I
something like
guess
that.
either or, yeah, a song or
Yeah,
an album, but
yeah,
we're
I
album
remember.
guys, right?
Yeah, it's a High and Dry is just, and it goes back to me being a massive AC/DC fan because there's such a similarity. Their sound, Def Leppard's sound on High and Dry, and a lot of that era AC/DC. I think that there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah, Mutt Lange
Sonically,
was just crushing it as a
he
producer, man, all
he
through the
was,
80s.
yeah, yeah. But High and Dry is really, that was one of those albums that I just really, really bonded with early. I'm a Highway to Hell guy. A lot of people go to Back in Black as being their favorite AC/DC album, and I understand why. I get all of that, and I love the debate that a lot of people have with that band. But Highway to Hell, I just absolutely love that
They're
album from start
they're
to finish.
they're both so good, man. And Highway to
Yeah.
Hell am I mistaken, or the last or second? Is that the one that has Ride On it? Or
Uh,
is that Dirty Deeds, maybe?
that
on
must be Dirty Deeds.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
great record, too. I love that song, Ride On, because it's just kind of different for AC/DC. It's a cool
yeah.
blues, it's almost like a 6/8 kind of vibe, which
Right.
AC/DC is always 4/4, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what they're known for.
But I love it. You know what's funny about AC/DC, probably more than any other band, and one of my, how can you not love AC/DC?
Absolutely.
If
Yeah.
I had to define rock and roll with one band, AC/DC, that's my answer.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
rock and roll,
Absolutely.
man. And it's like, I used to look at like, when you're same thing. If I was like watching a drummer who was going ape shit, and I'd be like, wow, that guy's amazing. I want him in my band. Nowadays, I'm like, I don't know. I want a guy who has self-control,
Exactly.
serves the song, and understands like that. And it's not just like, woohoo, look at me go,
Yeah.
Like, there's certain places for that,
Yeah.
but it's not. And I got so much more respect, like the longer I played and listened to music and Todd and all these different things about guys like Phil Rudd and that, who just really laid down the groove, but were so pocket and so perfect. And then sometimes, like, some of the little things that they do, the little accents and off hits, like, it's not as easy as you would think either.
That's exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So he definitely, he being Phil Rudd is, I mean, he's been kind of a blueprint for me for so long, and it's his personality. It's his voice behind the drums. It's not so much what he's playing. A lot of people are quick to make the argument that it's simple stuff or it's basic stuff, and if you're gonna go by the transcription, yeah, it seems simple and it seems basic. But his contribution to the sound of that band, his feel, and as you said, his phrasing, even some of the simple stuff. Nobody would have played it that way. Nobody other than Phil would have come in and voiced it that way and played it that way. And I don't think a lot of people on the surface level, I don't think they really understand his contribution to the sound of that band. That's me. That's me defending one of my my all-time favorites.
But I've noticed that a lot about, just from like listening to different music and figuring out songs and stuff. So many times, like, you have the simple, it could be the Beatles being a great example. I mean, simple, accessible pop songs. The melody is immediately in your head. It's very, but then there's all these things going on that like Ringo is, great, and there's all these cool things that each member of the band is doing, and they might even have an odd meter or a time signature change or a meter change, and you're just going like, but it's packaged so perfectly into this accessible pop thing that you don't really notice it, and then when you go dissect it, you're like, Jesus Christ. That's why I'm always like, it's cliche to say, but the Beatles' genius could never be overstated. I'm constantly
I agree with that.
Oh my God, there they go again. It's so progressive in these little sneaky ways, and I love that. And I think AC/DC has that quality too. It's so simple on the surface, but then you really dive in a little bit, and you're like, man, there's a lot of little things happening here that are really making this vibe this way.
Yeah. So a buddy of mine, we were kind of talking about this exact concept a while back, and my friend, but his name is Tuck Smith, and some of your viewers might know who he is, but he's a great songwriter. And he and I were talking about this very subject, and we were using Phil Rudd and a couple of the other examples that people like to go to. And he talks about with songwriting and the way people are easily dismissed because they're doing something that seems simple and basic. And he used the analogy, imagine making a delicious meal and only being given 3 ingredients. It's not as easy as people make it out to be. So while it may seem simple and basic on the surface, it's what you do with those little key ingredients. And I thought it was a good analogy, a good way to explain something like that.
I think it's a great analogy. I've used that same analogy in it.
Okay.
Just from watching like cooking shows, right? A lot of times those chefs are like, too much. They're getting all mad if you're throwing everything in the kitchen. So I would be immediately like yelled at and kicked off set by Gordon Ramsay because I'm putting chili powder and shit and everything.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
so you're a pinch it and
I don't measure it, whatever. But less is
Okay.
more. And I think it's like, I think sometimes as a musician or a player, like you kind of got to learn all these things and get it out of your system, and then you use tasteful discretion as to when you throw it out there, and when you're live and a little more, and the ends of songs, that's when you can really throw some chops
Exactly.
out.
Yeah.
But it's like I often like an album where it's not just a predictable guitar solo all the time, or it's not everyone's on 10 the whole record, and then when that one moment does happen, you're like, holy shit,
That's
like,
exactly it. Yeah.
cool,
Yeah. What is the old?
Yeah, it has to do with the intent of the music and the band too. I mean, obviously AC/DC and Rush are completely different things.
Sure. Yeah, and you know what? There's a market for all of that stuff. I don't mean to be critical of that kind of playing. It's I just never really considered myself that kind of player. It's not that I'm not impressed by it. I appreciate what some of these players can do. It's just not the kind of music I hear in my head. When I sit down behind the instrument, I don't hear those types of licks and those fills and those types of things. So it was never something that I was after when I was learning how to play.
You mentioned Alex Van Halen earlier, man, and Van Halen in general, and everybody knows Eddie and Alex, but I mean, these iconic, gifted, amazing, musicians. But I was never the guy that was like the end-all be-all Van Halen fan. It's almost shameful to say as a guitar player. It's like
I understand.
I've never heard of Neil Peart. Like what? How dare you? Like it's like. But man, so recently I did some other music in kind of a whole different fashion with this band I play with, and I was just listening to this stuff. I was just like, God, and I've already know this. I've listened to some Van Halen, but really kind of critically listening and learning some of the music.
Yeah,
dude, they were the masters of this progressive pop. The stuff they're doing, Eddie and Alex both. Would you agree? I mean, Alex, like, so his drums are insane sometimes.
I agree with that.
Song,
Yeah, I agree with some of the stuff. I'm going to use the term "got away with," but some of the stuff that he was able to work into these songs, it's almost if it's not done perfectly, it's just not going to work. And it seems to come very natural to him. It seems to be, we're talking about a voice behind the instrument. It seems to be just the way those guys hear it in their heads. It seems very natural. It's very logical. If I were to try to play some of that stuff, it would not work. That's for sure.
What other like rite of passage drum stuff, like a guitar player learning Stairway to Heaven solo or Eruption or something like? Yeah. Are there like the Inagata Davida drum solo or some shit like that? Like, were there things that you were like, I have to learn this?
I'm sure that there was and still is. I don't know. I can't come up with a specific example. When I was a kid growing up and learning how to play, you'd hear some of the iconic, the drum fills and things on the radio. But as far as like, I don't know. That's a really good question. I'm trying to think. I recently did, just because I'm a massive Tom Petty fan, and because I'm a huge Tom Petty fan, I'm a huge Stan Lynch fan.
Yeah.
I just recently went and did. I spent some time, and I wanted to learn Even the Losers, and I wanted to really just kind of learn the drum track as closely to Stan's drum track as I could. And I'm by no means note for note. He's got some stuff in there that I will always be chasing. And we're talking about a voice behind the instrument. He's another player that has a very distinct voice. He has a certain feel and a certain pocket to his playing. But I really wanted to go through that whole song and just get as close as I possibly could. So that was just kind of a fun little project for me that I did recently. And I was able to film a couple things. And cool. It kind of inspired me to want to do more of what you're talking about. But I really can't think of I'm not one of those drummers that, you hear like YYZ or something like that. These drummers who go home and study it and learn it note for note. I was never really that guy. I was always more about songs and context. And when I was a kid growing up and learning how to play, it was almost like drums was it was as much about playing drums as it was a social thing for me. If it wasn't my buddies in the garage trying to hack our way through Ramones songs and AC/DC songs, I wasn't the most disciplined as far as practicing and things like that. And I wish I had been more disciplined when I was a kid, but it was really all of the above. It was about playing drums. It was about the love of music, but it was also a social thing. I needed the context of being in a garage and trying to figure out songs with my friends.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I was always I did that, but I was like the bedroom player, but I was never that guy that was. I got like stuck in purgatory between like amazing virtuoso and like not really good at all. Like
Okay.
I'm like okay, but I would
Yeah,
always
yeah.
improvise, and I learned all the old school, speaking of Metallica and all those old riffs
Sure.
and all that stuff. And I mean,
Yeah.
when I met Snake, I mean, when we opened for you guys in Austin, I
Yeah.
had brought my Slave to the Grind
Oh, that's
guitar
awesome.
tab book, dude.
Yeah.
And he was just like, "Oh yeah, this is all wrong." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I nowadays I can spot it because it's like,
Yeah.
I'm playing for 100 years, but like
That's funny.
when you're back then, you're like learning things. If your transcription that you have is, and this was pre-internet, like right on the
Yeah.
cusp of the internet, it's like that's all face value. And you're like, well, that sounds odd, but I guess it's in this.
That's exactly, yeah.
But
yeah.
the days of that, and I mean, but I had just enough discipline to kind of learn all the riffs. But when it got to guitar solos, I just wanted to jam and play,
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
there's certain like from a technical aspect, like I couldn't dive into like insane. I mean, I play some of this stuff somehow.
Right.
And it's more metal type bands, but I mean, it's kind of my Achilles heel. I feel like I'm more of a blues guy and more of a Tom Petty guy, and I'm not like the same kind of stuff you're talking about. I just a song guy, and I think I've evolved even more to that as I played longer. And I think a lot of that too, it's just experience. It's the longer you've been around, the more music you've been around, but also from teaching music and stuff. It's just that was something that took me back to like really dissecting songs.
Right.
And really looking at the inner workings, really and really learning note for note solos and stuff. And I'm glad I did. It like gave me a great appreciation. But so much now it really is based on like what's this song's intent and how are we going to build around it. And so much of that is it's just from kind of a production standpoint. I mean, songs, grooves. You only got so many beats in a basic world. So
That's
many
it.
meters, so
Yeah.
many beats, so many chords. These same things exist in zillions of songs, but what you do with that.
Right.
Like you said, the particular person putting their stamp, that even if they're playing the exact same groove,
That's it. Yeah.
different,
Yeah, exactly. How do you make it sound like your own variation of that? And it's not as easy as you would think.
Anything new? Did your daughter turn you on to anything?
Yeah.
Is she a rock and roller, or is she trying to get you?
She's a rock and roller. I've got her into a couple of if you're familiar with Backyard Babies, a Swedish rock band called Backyard Babies.
Backyard Babies, okay.
Yeah, they've been a favorite of mine for many, many, many years. So I've turned her on to some Backyard Babies stuff. She's a bit of an AC/DC fan. My wife is a huge Aerosmith fan, early Aerosmith. So my daughter is well versed in some early Aerosmith stuff. Here's a funny one for you. Are you familiar with a band called Sabaton?
Sabaton? No.
Sabaton. Okay. So I'm going to get this wrong. I believe they're Swedish based, but they're a European metal band. But the concept of the band, they are very, 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 I say they, and I believe it's primarily the singer who does the writing, but he is very, very incredibly knowledgeable about both World War I and World War II history. So their albums are themed based on various points of these world wars, and they'll do an entire album on a particular battle or a particular point in history. So it's stuff it's way deeper than anything that the history books here have taught us. They've really gone into the history of all this, and their stage setup is very military looking. And I think this particular tour, which unfortunately was cut short, but they were supporting Judas Priest here in the States. So where I'm going with all this is my daughter somehow or another overheard me listening to some Sabaton recently, and my daughter is into Sabaton. So of all the bands that I could have possibly turned her on to, she's now into some World War I and World War II. Some
Man,
pretty dark stuff.
that's like double parent award, dude. She's getting
Is
history.
it?
She's learning-
Is it though?
No, she's listening to rock and roll. She's learning history.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how much history she's actually taking in, but she's into all the the craziness of it. So
It's pretty heavy stuff. Like
it is heavy. Yeah. It's I call it. So this is probably not the best description of it. It's melodic. It's European melodic metal,
Right.
and I don't know if that's a fair description, but I'm a fan. They've got a few records that I like more than others, so I'm still kind of going through their catalog and becoming familiar with some of their older stuff. I'm a fan, and now my daughter's a fan as well. So I don't know what that says about me as a as a parent, but I like the idea that you think I deserve an award for that.
yeah, I do, man. I mean,
pretty cool.
All right.
there was a lot of terrible things that you could have been like that your daughter could listen to, but
Yeah, well, her favorite song is "Attack of the Dead Men," so it's
oh well, there you go.
yeah. There you go.
I mean, listening to Iron Maiden got me through English lit and history with all their songs.
Well, okay, well there you go.
There you
Yeah, yeah. She might grow up to be a
Iron Maiden
history-
Cliffs Notes.
yeah.
they,
Look at the album
she
cover.
might grow
look
up
at
to
the
be a
lyrics.
history professor.
Yeah, yeah. It could be worse. I know me and Skunk have had some lively discussions about a certain genre of country music. that,
Okay.
I'm not going to put Rob on the spot and make him hate on anything.
no, no.
We're trying to clean this podcast up and be
That's
more
right, yeah.
professional around here these days.
Yeah, but there's plenty of stuff out there to hate on. We'll just keep it vague. We'll keep it general.
My big take, and Pat Summerall can cut me off here if I start ranting. But my big thing, man, is just like all I really care about at the end of the day is like is the intent of the artist, and is it a genuine thing? Is it a genuine piece of art, whether it's lyrics or poetry or
Sure.
or the music and the whole? Where did it come from, or is it contrived and just sort of this like like that's what I really
get it.
care about. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? As a
Yeah.
musician, like that means a lot to me.
That's a
So-
really fair way to put it, and that's
Yeah.
not even to say it's maybe not everything will resonate with me, but I can respect it and I can see the integrity and exactly what you're describing. I'd never really thought of it that way, but you can tell when something is completely unnatural, manufactured, contrived,
Yes.
and that's something that I really hope to steer clear of. But it's hopefully it doesn't come across that way, and you never know, but hopefully that's something to.
Well, I certainly don't
Yeah.
think that's something you have to worry about. I don't
Well,
think,
I don't know. Talk to me in 10 years. Yeah.
well, whenever the next Skid Row album comes out.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be before 10 years.
Rob, to
Yeah.
be quite honest with you, track 3 is just not vibing for me. It's just
All right.
a little
All right.
contrived.
Vic, time to reel him in. Time to reel him. That's funny.
Yeah, Vic's a big. We always talk about Clutch. You know the band Clutch?
Oh yeah.
we're
Yeah.
big
Okay.
Clutch fans.
Okay. All right.
Speaking of drummers, I don't even know that drummer's name, man. That guy's so
So-
great.
Jake-
Yeah.
Hey. John Paul something.
Cluster. So I can't pronounce it. I can picture it, but I can't. Starts with a C. Yeah, that'll
they're
get
a
you.
great example, I think, of a band that has. They're a rock band. They're rock and roll. They're blue collar
Absolutely.
working man's rock
Yeah.
band. But they are really they really know how to put those progressive elements in there. And they're
I
not
agree
even
with that, yeah.
They're not even being sneaky. Sometimes it's an obvious 5/4 or 7/4, but
Yeah.
they're always good songs. Always,
Yeah.
.
The thing I like about a band like that, and I'm not the most well versed on their catalog. I love what I have heard, but I haven't done a deep dive on their catalog. But they're a band that have, in my observation, they've figured out what they do and what they do very well, and
Yeah.
they've figured out their sound, and they just found an audience with it. There's nothing about it we're talking about being contrived or manufactured, or you get the sense with that band that they don't make a whole lot of compromises, and they know what they do, and they know what they want their band to sound like. They've been fortunate enough to find an audience and maintain this audience and probably grow it throughout the years. you'd probably get a different answer from them if you were to ask them. I'm sure they're making compromises left and right, but to me, it comes across as a band with their own sound, their own special thing, and I love that. I think that's harder and harder to do as time goes on.
Yeah.
So a band like that, that's the thing that jumps out at me as something to really strive for and really appreciate.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah.
I love those bands that get, and it's such a different industry nowadays. I mean, in terms of labels and major it's such a
Sure.
it's a whole different world, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of bands, they're on their own labels or smaller labels, and it's not everyone doesn't have to be on Atlantic or Epic or whatever.
Right.
And that's great, and it gives there's a lot of times there's more artistic freedom. But a lot of those bands that have been around for since probably the '90s. I mean, I guess even Clutch, has been around since the '90s. Had
Have they
some
been-
sort of
okay.
I think so, like late '90s, but some sort of major label release. Another example, like one of my all-time favorite bands that had that big commercial success, and then we're just like, okay, fuck off, we're gonna do what we want, is Faith No More. Like,
Yeah,
Faith No
for
More
sure.
always just does whatever the hell they want,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think those kind of bands definitely lend themselves to a very loyal cult sort of status. You may not have that gigantic arena selling. Well, very few bands have that anyway. But
Right.
But yeah, I think it's cool, man, because it really shows the integrity of the band. On the flip side, it's like AC/DC doesn't really ever reinvent the wheel, but they don't have to. It's just rocks all the time,
Yeah, that's they. I mean, you can say they have a formula, and they kind of do, but that's not an accident. That's what they know. That's what they know how to do. That's they don't apologize for it, which is something that I love about that band. They know what AC/DC is all about. They're in on it. It's not a mystery to them what the next move is. They're going to do what they do, and hopefully you love it. And it just so happens that millions of people do love it. But you really get the sense that that's just what they do, whether there's 20 people here or 50,000 people here. This is what we do. I believe it was Angus in an interview, and I could have this wrong, but at one point he was asked what he says to critics who accuse them of making the same album 10 times. And he'll tell them, well, I'll tell them they're full of shit. We've actually made that record 12 times. So, and that's basically his response to it, or something very similar to that. They know what they do. They know what they hear in their heads. And I kind of love that as well.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's like name a bad AC/DC song. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Every time they put out a record, it's like not every song is necessarily hit, but there are always hits on the records. And
Exactly. Yeah.
I can always sit down and listen to an AC/DC album pretty much straight through, right?
Yeah.
There's never those moments of just like, oh, these were clearly the sort of like fluff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's just a killer record, and it doesn't have to be any different than the previous one, really.
That's
It's
right.
Good,
Yeah. That's right.
Tom Petty, man. I'm a massive Tom Petty fan. Like
Yeah.
every Tom Petty thing I ever heard, pretty much was just like, how did you do it?
That's
again?
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, the guy what was the Tom Petty drummer?
Stan Lynch.
Stan Lynch.
Yeah. He's going back to Heartbreakers era, and I forgot what year he parted ways with Tom. I want to say it was. We'd have to look this up. I'm gonna say early to mid '90s, possibly.
Okay.
I could have that wrong, but he's on the
Great Wide Open, Southern accents, that stuff.
Yeah, and obviously the early Damn the Torpedoes, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, all
yeah,
the
that
old
was
stuff.
him.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Wildflowers? Do you know who drummed on that album?
I don't know.
It's a
I'd
whole
have to go
different
back.
thing, I think. Man, that's
Yeah.
a great record too.
I'd have to go back and look. Yeah, I'm not sure who's on that.
Anyone else? Other big, huge influence drummers? Obviously, Bonham.
Yeah, Mickey Curry. If you guys are familiar with Mickey Curry, he's been an influence for me for a very long time. He's been an influence on me before I realized he was an influence on me, because he's played on so many major hits and albums, and with so many different bands and artists throughout the years. He's one that he's most well known for being Bryan Adams' drummer. So he's on the Bryan Adams albums, and the earlier ones, Cuts Like a Knife and Reckless and all that really iconic Bryan Adams stuff. He played drums on all those albums. He played drums on some early Hall & Oates records. He played drums on some of the bigger Cult records. So when you hear some of those big Cult hits, you're hearing Mickey Curry on those.
Really?
But he's been around.
I always thought that was Matt Sorum. So was that before or?
That was before Matt Sorum, yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, the only record that Matt is on is Beyond Good and Evil. He was with the band. He may have recorded the one after that as well, but I'd have to go back and look at that. But if you look up Mickey Curry, I'll tell you what, set aside an hour or so because his discography is pretty impressive. And you're talking about everybody from Cher to like I said, early Hall & Oates records, all kinds of crazy stuff. So
Cool, man. Gotta love Hall & Oates, dude.
yeah.
Yeah, that's one cool thing about whenever we do a podcast, I'm like opening windows and then I'm like, okay, Sabaton.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of stuff open up there.
You got anything? Any additions, Vic?
Outside of music, is there anything that people would be surprised to know about you? I know, like me, I like drinking different whiskeys and scotch, and Skunk likes to collect Hello Kitty and My Little Pony dolls. And
Yeah, all right. That doesn't surprise me at all.
That's
But
my thing.
yeah, all right.
I'm glad you looked at me and got that from me.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that I'm sending the right message to the world. My Little Pony.
You're definitely getting it out there.
Awesome.
So I'm I don't know if this would surprise people, but I'm a motorcycle guy in my spare time. I ride as much as possible. I say I'm turning into a bit of a collector. I don't have the collection that I lie awake and dream about. It's a little bit of a sickness for me. If it were up to me, I'd have a garage full of bikes. But I spend a lot of time riding, and I have my it keeps me pretty busy outside of the band between family and as a hobby. Again, I don't know if that's really surprising.
Are you what kind of bikes? Are like Harleys or dirt bikes or
So,
choppers? Or?
yeah, well, I do own a Harley at the moment. I own one of the new lowriders, which is a great bike. I love the newer Harley, the Softail line, and I can go into all this kind of stuff. And I don't know how interesting any of this comes across, but a labor of love for me. For the last handful of years, I have a 1975 Honda 400F. So that's a 4-cylinder 1975. So it's an inline 4 small bike in comparison to what's on the market these days. It's a pretty small bike. But I just absolutely love this thing for some specific reasons that take me back to my childhood. So this has been a very long project as far as getting this thing rebuilt and restored. And when I say restored, it's by no means to what it would be in its stock form. I consider it to be what they call a resto mod. So it's a restoration, but it's modified. So it's completely chopped of anything extra. It's kind of what they call the brat bike thing. This bike has been a labor of love, and I call it my moody girlfriend because it's either my best friend or quite the opposite. But right now she's kind of where I want it. But it took me a long time to get there. Runs great. It's a lot of fun. I love riding that bike. So it's kept me busy. It keeps me from having any extra money. That's for sure. It was it was a long process.
I think you said back to childhood. Did you start riding when you were young, or is there something about that particular bike that resonates back then?
Yeah. So growing up, I rode dirt bikes and ATVs and all those types of things. My father has always ridden. My father was a Honda guy when I was growing up. He had a Honda Goldwing for a long time. So Honda's is kind of a brand that I've been involved with since my childhood. But my uncle, my mother's brother, he rode a Honda CB back in the late 70s. So the mid-era Honda's CB was, and there was a huge span in terms of the size. You could go from small bikes all the way up to a 750, and those were very, very, very popular bikes back then. And they've made a huge resurgence over the last handful of years. But that particular bike was a bike that my uncle rode, and it just I remember seeing pictures of him. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was very young, so I didn't know him as well as I would have liked to have known him. But he was. I remember seeing pictures of him, and I remember him when I was a kid, and he was, when I say he was like the Fonz to me, he was like James Dean or the Fonz. So I envision myself being that cool on this bike, and I'm probably not, but it takes me back to some really cool childhood memories. And then, as I said, my father still rides and has always ridden as well. So it's been in my family for a long time. So
Your cool went a different route with the homemade PVC pipe drum cage.
it really did, yeah. You say that, and I'm gonna find that picture for you because
I gotta see that picture. I can't
it's
wait.
it's the opposite of cool. There's nothing about it, and you have to factor in the hair, the glasses. Oh yeah,
yes.
everything that an awkward kid could be going through, I was going through it and I was trying to work it out with PVC pipe. I was trying to work out all my issues with PVC pipe in the basement.
Oh, I thought you meant an endorsement deal.
No. It was I
got to deal with Home Depot. Things moving along.
No, I was dealing with a lot of awkward stuff going on. So I figured this PVC pipe would make up for it.
I got to find those pictures too of my buddy, man. He had the world's best mullet. And
That's awesome.
Cardboard boxes and screwdriver. I mean, the drum kit for the ages, man.
That's funny.
By the way,
Yeah.
I just so we can make sure we all know this information. The Black Beauty snare is in fact seamless.
It is.
It is, okay.
It is.
Vic has
Good,
put this in the
Sing-
chat.
single
so
piece
we
of
can all-
brass is what it said. It's just
Okay.
rolled out. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Okay. So we can put that to bed. Okay.
There you go.
Good.
Yeah, bikes, man. It's funny you talk about how your uncle was an influence. When I was a little kid, I had an uncle, and some of my first memories. There's like a picture of him holding me like as a baby, and he has a broken arm, and it was from a motorcycle accident.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
I remember getting the whole motorcycle. But to be fair, I'm not the kind of person with my attention span, and nobody wants to be in a car with me anyway. And it's like, I'm glad that I don't ride motorcycles.
Okay.
And I mean, I got in so many like bike wrecks as a kid. It's probably best that I didn't make that transition.
You got to know your limits, right?
You got to know what you're good at, So I went to My Little Pony. It's a much safer. It's my safe space.
All right. You guys might know. Do you guys know Javier Muriel from Buckcherry? He's an Austin guy.
Yeah, I've seen. I don't know him.
Okay.
I know Buckcherry plays there. I think they just played fairly recently. I could be wrong.
Gotcha.
But,
So he parted ways with the band 5 or 6 years ago. But he's back in Austin, and you want to talk about some awesome bikes. He's a guy that he's building these crazy awesome, like the old Harley, like early 90s shovelhead type of choppers and all that kind of stuff. So for anybody who's out there looking for that kind of stuff, he's awesome. And I thought you might know him
he straight up builds bikes.
He does. Yeah, he does a lot of really cool custom, but he's using the old Harleys as a platform for it, but he's doing some really cool things. So I thought you guys might, being that he's an Austin guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of dudes living here, man. I mean, obviously, we were talking about people flocking to these particular places, but it's definitely one of those towns. I think a lot of people, maybe not so much now. It's becoming more of this, big deal. But like a lot of people come live here somewhat incognito, and
You guys are the new Silicon Valley, aren't you? Is that
I think so,
is that,
man.
Is that what I'm hearing?
That's pretty much what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here we are. Well, Vic knows tech. I don't know tech.
I kind of know tech.
Vic's,
I kind of fake my way through tech so I can have a job.
Okay. Well, you saw what happened to me earlier tonight, so so you fooled me.
Well, writing on that, what you just said, and this is a very weird thing to say, but see, Vic is like my daughter.
Okay. All right.
He's fixed my computers in the past. Remember Vic?
Oh yeah,
That is a weird.
Vic has fixed my computers. Without context, that's the weirdest shit ever. I felt like we did way too good with this podcast without having weird, awkward moments, so I had to ruin it for everybody.
Vic, we're gonna do a paternity test real quick, if you don't mind.
I mean, dude, look at us. We look exactly alike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obvious. We're
Spitting
related.
image. Yeah.
That's funny.
Absolutely.
Man, I think we'll wrap up here pretty soon. I always asked about foods, though. What's your favorite foods?
Oh, I'm a sushi guy. But it's got to be good sushi. Got to be good sushi. Like no
H-E-B sushi. Y'all even have
grocery
H-E-B in
store.
Atlanta? Is that a thing?
We don't, but our grocery stores sell it, and I'm not getting my sushi at a grocery store. Nah,
That's so rock star of you, Rob. You're like, oh, sushi. Quality sushi
I know.
only, please.
I know, and I even did the hand gesture, and as soon as I heard myself say it,
Excuse me, is my drum set all set up? I'm
I know.
having sushi in the green room.
that's exactly with my seamless snare drums and whatnot.
This snare drum has a seam. I'm not playing.
I know.
Refuse to take the stage.
How dare you?
You can do the old, do you know who I am treatment.
That's right.
That's my
right.
favorite thing. I think I always joke about it, but never do it. I thought it'd be hilarious to just play that card when you're literally like, people are like, no, I don't, because you're not famous at all.
That's exactly, yeah.
You know who I am?
That would backfire with me every single time I asked, so.
So sushi, what else?
Yeah.
That's it? You only eat sushi 3 times a day.
No, that's my favorite. If I'm gonna spoil myself, that's where I'm gonna do it usually. I'm not a steak guy. I'm not a big. What are some of the other obvious choices for decadent food?
Well, we're from Texas, so you know what the hell we eat down here.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah,
Lots of
I do like barbecue. Yeah, I am
Oh.
a fan of barbecue. So.
Well, I was gonna say Mexican food.
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
barbecue's great.
Barbecue's
Mexican
Tex-Mex.
food. I'm a Mexican food junkie.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a southern thing. What's cool in Atlanta, man? What is it? What's Atlanta's food vibe?
So Atlanta's got a really good food scene. Not around us. That's the problem. Not in my neighborhood, I should say. So there's a lot of good places around here, but there's nothing that's got like individual Atlanta character. So we've got the usual, like the really well done American fare. We've got some Tex-Mex. So you guys are familiar with Chuy's, which the first Chuy's that I ever ate at was in Austin.
I just ate there for the first time in like 2 years.
Okay, so that's
Yeah, love it.
I would have thought that was an institution for you guys with the massive obscene portions of food.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is.
What is it? The Elvis Presley Memorial combo? Is that the?
I
Am I
used to get
thinking
the
right?
Comida Deluxe, but they're pretty similar in terms of just like obnoxious amounts of food.
Yeah.
But I think what I like about Mexican food is like there's no waiting. You sit down and you're immediately able to start eating chips.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that is. If you're hungry, I get the appeal. Yeah.
Like the fact that this shirt is stretched out. I want to blame it on COVID weight, but this is really Chewy's weight. I mean,
I got you. Yeah.
honest, you know?
I get it.
Anyway,
Yeah.
what else?
What
What are you gonna say?
What do I need to know about? Where do I need to visit next time I'm in Austin? That's my question for you guys.
For barbecue, I would say Salt Lick, man. Salt Lick
Okay.
barbecue is
Okay.
awesome. They've got this really cool place that's like just this super big outdoor area. You can get wine and stuff and barbecue, and there's music playing. It's really
Okay.
cool, really cool vibe. I mean,
Okay.
there's so many good Mexican
Yeah.
food places. There are
Yeah.
some really legit sushi places here too.
There are.
Okay.
There's a
Good to
place
know.
called Valentina's Tex-Mex Barbecue that is probably one of the best Tex-Mex barbecue joints.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to keep that in mind. Are you guys still? You guys were doing the food truck thing pretty hard for a while, were you not?
Yeah, there's a lot of food
Yeah,
trucks still
yeah,
happening
still,
here.
Yeah.
still a lot of
I
them.
know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I might have to take a lap around, maybe take a couple days and eat my way around Austin.
Oh,
if,
there you go.
If you guys are up for it.
Dude, anytime you come down, man, we'll show you where to get the good food.
Okay.
I'll take you out for sushi, but you got to pay for it. I'll get the barbecue because I can afford it. I can't afford the sushi.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fair.
The quality sushi.
That's fair. Yeah. All right.
I was like,
I already said I don't do anything below here, so all right.
yeah.
All
I'm
right.
like,
You're
I'm
gonna-
sitting there going like,
You're going
oh
to take
my
them
God,
to HEB
this is like-
Plus.
That's right.
They're
Yeah.
like, oh, I got it. I'm like, are you sure? Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. How unexpected.
You're going to take them to HEB Plus for that sushi, right? Not the regular
Yeah.
HEB Plus.
Dude, here's the thing. Like, I don't mind that sushi. I'll eat HEB sushi, but don't give me that shit in a restaurant and try to tell me it's like if
There
I
you
go to a
go.
restaurant,
Yeah.
I want some really badass sushi, like where you know.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? Like, I'm not a snob about it, but if I'm paying sushi prices at a sushi place,
Yeah.
it needs to be good, like fresh, sushi.
That's fair. That's fair. I think it's it's
I'll eat-
expectation management, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So if it's HEB, I know what I'm getting, and I'll still eat it because I'll eat almost anything. What don't you like? Are there any foods you don't like mushrooms?
Yeah. What don't I like? There's a lot, but I can't come up with anything right now. Gosh.
See, you weren't back in the hit paraders back in the 90s and shit.
I know.
When I used to read about all my favorite bands and I could say creepy things to like Snake or Scotty, like, you like Indian food. What the fuck, dude?
That's
You're a
right, yeah.
Weirdo.
Yeah. Who is this guy?
Scotty's favorite food. It's like
Yeah.
this kind of shit, like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're probably like you right now, like, I don't know, dude. Fucking sushi? What?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
are we talking about this?
Dude, there's got to be a ton of stuff I don't like. There's nothing that I'm violently allergic to. There's nothing you could put on the table that's going to send me running. But I don't know. That's a good question. Good question. I'll come up with something.
Sports, no sports, but kind of no sports.
I'm no. I'm not a hardcore follower of any type of sports. I say that like I have a dislike for sports. I certainly don't.
I read.
Yeah, don't do that either.
I read history via the lyric pamphlets of Sabaton.
That's right. Yeah, and actually, I'm really just getting that through my daughter now. So yeah, I'm not even reading it.
She's educating you now. Like you're learning about World War I.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, I was gonna say, quick shout out to Kaylee and Top Shelf magazine.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We're really stoked for our second season to be working with them, and up there in Toronto, which is another place I really love. Speaking of that northeast area, I'm sure you've been to Toronto. I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
And how did you guys meet? So she shot Skid Row a couple
She
times?
did, yeah. We did. I have forgotten the name of the casino. It was up in Traverse Bay, Michigan area, and this is going back maybe 2 years ago. So as we mentioned earlier, it's like last year doesn't count.
Right,
So
exactly.
I can't remember if it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. But she came out and covered the show, and she reached out and put all of us in touch, and I'm glad she did because this was awesome. So
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for doing it. And
yeah.
she does. She's a great photographer, and it was super cool.
She is,
that she did do this. I've been a huge Skid Row fan forever. Oh, I was going to say earlier. So the funny thing about when I started playing guitar and I got super into Skid Row and just one of my earliest influences, and so then fast forward all these years and I opened for them, or for you guys in 2016, and now this was the tour. Obviously, you'd been around a while, but this was the tour.
Right.
Let me fuck his name up a second time.
Okay.
ZP?
ZP, yes. Yeah.
Poor bastard. It's not even a name.
I know, right?
It's
right.
initials, and I fucked it up.
So I have, bookmark that when you're done. I have a great story about trying to explain to somebody's two simple letters, but
See, I swear, but I mean, of course, we all know the history of Skid Row, but like in Solinger after Bach for a long time, and then ZP comes along, and that when you guys were here in 2016, I guess you were doing a tour to celebrate like it was like a 25-year anniversary or something like that. But I don't even think he was an official member of the band. I think he was not a sub, but right, he kind of
a special,
in, right?
a special guest, if you will, for lack of a better term. So yeah, that would have put it at 2016. And he did a handful of gigs with us as kind of special guest. I'm doing finger quotes here.
Yeah.
And it all kind of worked out. So
Dude, killer. And I saw my fiance and I saw you guys again in Houston.
okay.
Again, we don't remember anything at this point.
Yeah.
Was it 5 years ago or 2? I don't know. I think it was like 2018. But
Okay.
and then and same thing, man. So I think the lineup is just killer, man. You guys are
Well, thank
great.
you.
I'm super excited to
Thank
hear the new music. I know I know what a process that stuff is, but I'm sure
Yeah.
it'll be worth the wait for everybody.
We're working on it.
So what's up with his name?
So I'm going to share with you guys a funny story. When he first came to the U.S. to jam with us, we were planning to rehearse for 3 or 4 days in Nashville, and it made sense for him to fly to Atlanta, and he and I drove to Nashville to rehearse for a few days. So he and I got to the hotel where we were staying, and this sweet young girl behind the counter, as she's required to do for check-in, asks for ID. So I go through the process of checking in, get my stuff. ZP comes up to the counter, and she asks his name, and he said ZP, and Z is I guess the Queen's English. I don't know if it's the Queen's English, but the English way of pronouncing the letter Z. So he said ZP. And she asked him if he could spell that. And he said, I did. And she said, no, your name. And he said, he said, ZP. And she said, I'm sorry, can you spell that? And he said, I did. And when I say it was like an Abbott and Costello routine that went on for 5 minutes, and this poor girl could not figure out what the hell he was saying, and he could not understand why the hell she was asking him to spell ZP. And when I say this went on for 5 minutes, so now you have to understand, this is his introduction to getting to the U.S. and potentially working with this band. So you calling him TP or ZP or whatever it is, it's the least of his worries. So I love telling that story. It was like a 5-minute Abbott and Costello routine. And now the other thing that you need to remember is at any point I could have stepped in and helped them and solved it. But why would I do that? Why would I? It was too funny to so I had to just sit back and let the whole thing go on for a bit.
You got to let those things play out, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now I really do have a desire to meet the whole band simply to. I think he's probably the only guy I haven't talked to at this point, but simply to ask him to spell his name, I think is what this is. This is a new goal of mine.
So in fairness, we've dumbed him down over the last 5 years, so he will probably say ZP. But
he's been U.S.ified. He has a little accent. He has a little accent to him now.
A little bit, a little bit.
Bring him on down to Texas. Well, I guess Atlanta's close enough.
Close enough, right? Yeah.
Oh man, dude, we could talk all night, and this is what we typically do. We go on and on and on, but we're trying to keep them. I don't know. I guess we had some technical issues that your technician stepped in and helped us with, and I think we did. An hour and a half of good old chatting. Final thoughts? Any final thoughts?
Is the Red Eyed Fly still open?
Holy fuck! What a weird, crazy.
Yeah, I know, right?
Did you play there at some point?
I've played there a handful of times.
No way.
It's it
is not open.
It's not, okay.
It was another venue, and I don't know if it's still that now, but I think there is. I think it's still something, just not Red Eyed Fly anymore.
Do they still have the drumstick wall behind the stage?
It's a good question because I have not been there in a long time.
Yeah, that was super cool.
It was cool.
I've had a couple of nights there. Yeah, I've had a couple nights there that the nights you can't remember are the nights you'll never forget.
Oh yeah,
that type of thing. So that's why I had to ask. It's been
know anything about that, Vic?
I do not.
Vic and I go way back. We've we've had many experience of
was that
Baracho.
Was that the same place where one of your gigs, your drummer, got his stick stuck in his hair?
Man, you remember it well.
Yeah.
So we had, I've had several drummers in my band, but we had this guy had hair down to his ass. I'm so jealous because it's still just like
right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Of lovely hair, and I've got this shit. But he's like knotted up, tangled. That's why I've cut this day. I had long hair until like 5 minutes ago, and I'm like, I can't take it anymore. Anyway, so he's hammering away, just beast mode, you know.
Right.
Looks great on stage, and we're in the middle of this song. It's kind of just a real groove, not super busy. So it's like every snare, really, everything counts.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I feel like I just hear something drop out. And I turn around, and he's got his fucking drumstick.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
We had him on our podcast. We did a whole podcast about this drummer of all the things to do to not be a good drummer. Fantastic live performer, nightmare to work with. You know,
I understand.
The guy makes knives and shit now, so I'm not going to talk too much shit.
All right, well.
But yeah,
it seems like a logical step from playing drums to knives, right?
I think so, man. He was an angry guy anyway, so it made sense for him. But yeah, dude. If you ever, I just thought of one more thing though. So what are some like you mentioned Austin and Red Eyed Fly, which is kind of random, but like, what are some other places like that throughout the country or anywhere that you've played that are just like those jewels of like, wow, what a great venue, or your favorite places that you've played over the years?
So there's a handful of them. In the U.S., my bucket list is still Red Rocks. We have not done Red Rocks. That's my bucket list. One of my bucket list venues. So I'm throwing that out there to the universe. I'm just saying it out loud so that hopefully at some point it comes back around. There's a place in eastern Pennsylvania called Penn's Peak, which is an absolutely beautiful venue. It's like playing a ski lodge, but it's a I'd say smallish theater. I don't know what the capacity is, maybe maybe 2,000, 2,500, something like that. But when you're on stage and you're facing the back of the venue it's all glass and it overlooks the valley, the river. And if you play up there during the wintertime, obviously you're just getting an amazing view. It is really like playing a ski lodge, and it sounds great. The venue's great. It's really well done. That is one of our favorites. Every time we see it on the schedule, we all get really excited. It's funny. There's not so much venues, but restaurants. And when I say restaurants, like little burger joints around the around the country. Every time we go into a particular area, we do a little bit of research, and we might find something online and check it out. So we've got our favorite hangs for sure. Minneapolis, Matt's Bar and Grill that is one of them that we hit every time we're in Minneapolis. And there's a few others throughout the country. I'm trying to think of other venues.
Perk of touring, man. Like lots of I said it's a cool perk of touring. A lot of because different food that you get to try in different places.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. We try to get out and see a little bit of something. And for a while there, Rachel and I we would go on like diners, drive-ins, and dives or something like that and just check out what was in the area and do a little bit of exploring. So I love doing that kind of stuff. I'm a tourist at heart. So
I love that too, man. That's like one reason I like to be on the road is just to experience all those things, try new things. It's so easy to kind of get in your own, because if I didn't, I would literally just eat Chewy's every single day until I keeled over dead from a heart attack at Chewy's.
Yeah, it's good.
But anyway, last question, man. I'm gonna have to I'm really gonna put you on the spot here.
Okay.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Does Skid Row play weddings? And if so, do you give bro rates since we're friends now? It has been seriously discussed that we would like for Skid Row to play our wedding. So,
you know what? I'm going to answer that question. That's an easy one to answer. Never say never. Never say never. We've not played a wedding since I've been in the band, but I can tell you that there has been a couple got married at one of our sound checks on stage with us.
Wow.
So at this point, nothing is out of the question.
Especially, I'm asking at the right time because you're coming off of COVID and everyone's like, "Fuck it."
Yeah, exactly. At this point, yeah.
I'm gonna play it a gig. Fuck it. If I want to get, well, here's what I've learned: if I want to get married and have Skid Row play, we need to do it at Red Rocks or this Pennsylvania ski lodge. Well, I know it's not a ski lodge, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Place is.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk logistics later, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. With this whole COVID thing, you might be allowed to have more people at your wedding than some of our gigs. So this might actually work out to be a good opportunity for us. I don't know.
Well, neither one of us really like people that much, so I don't know. Okay. I don't know how good your crowd's going to be. It'll just be us, like woohoo.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah. What a disappointing wedding. They didn't even bring anybody. Shit.
Yeah.
We're
used to it.
Now, my whole idea, man, I want to do like the simple, super small, low key thing, and then just have a badass party and have, Skid Row for us would be like, that'd be our number one. But just have a fucking great band play, have fun, invite all of our friends. Like that's what I want to do. So
that would be awesome. That'd be awesome.
But now that we know we can get married on stage with you guys, well, shit, I guess we'll just do that.
I mean, that's right.
You can fucking ride on stage on a motorcycle with the ring and shit. Like it'll be badass, dude. Like
that'd be awesome.
Just so my fiance can't hear this, and that would all be a surprise. Like
at some point during that day, you're gonna have to hang out with her, right? You are aware of that, right?
Dude, I'm not even there. She's going to be so enamored with Skid Row. She's going to be like, "Oh, we just got married. My bad." Like,
yeah, it'll wear off after we're there for about an hour or so.
It'll be cool.
It'll wear off.
All right, man. So yeah, it sounds like we've got some real serious conversation to be discussed over mass quantities of Mexican food in the future.
Yeah. So
that sounds right. That sounds right.
Needs to be at Red Rocks, and sushi needs to be served. Right.
Oh, dude.
Okay.
All we got to do is get sushi, and this guy's on board. So I'll go find my own hit paraders and find out what everybody's cuisine preferences are.
There you go.
Dude, thank you so much, Rob Hammersmith, for joining us. This was an absolute blast, man. Really.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. This was awesome. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Our pleasure. All right. Well, once again, Vic, you got anything else before I yap us out of here?
No. Thanks for the time. Hang out just a bit when we finish up.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah. Ready to
Just
wrap
got to
up.
wait for this to upload. So once we sign off here, just hang for a sec, Rob.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again, Top Shelf Magazine. This episode, how do I say this? Because it's not out now, but it will be soon. But if I say that, then people are hearing it, and they're like, well, it's already out. So season 2, we still don't know what we're doing. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to Manhattan. Victor Ramos with Rob Hammersmith. Until next time, later.
Laters. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast with Rob Hammersmith from Skid Row. Be sure and check out some of Skid Row's music linked at the end of this video. Audio links will also be provided if you're just listening in today. We'd also like to take this time to thank our new friends at Top Shelf Music, who we've partnered with to bring you this podcast. You can find our podcast embedded on our page there, along with all the latest music premieres, music news, and reviews. You can find them at topshelfmusicmag.com. We'd also like to give a shout out to our good friends at Godin Guitars, Trayton Guitars, Ernie Ball Strings, and Five Iron Woodworks. Make sure to follow us on all our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, along with YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to your podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe for all our updates. Until next time, be well and throw on some good tunes.